I will call the 6th December Planning Commission meeting to order. Will you please call the roll, Ms. Isantis?
Yes. Mr. Rogers.
Present.
Mr. Rogers represents the Berkeley District. Ms. Null.
Present.
Ms. Null represents the Stonehouse District. Mr. Rose.
Here.
Mr. Rose represents the Roberts District and is vice chair to the commission. Mr. Haldeman.
Here.
Mr. Haldeman is an at-large member. Mr. O'Connor.
Here.
Mr. Connor is an at-large member. Mr. Kropp.
Here.
Mr. Kropp represents the Powhatan District. Mr. Polster.
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District and is chair of the commission. I'm Susan I. Stannis, Director of Planning for the county, and it's my pleasure to serve as the secretary to the commission. Sitting to my left is Ms. Liz Parman, Deputy County Attorney. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Our first item on our agenda is public comment, and the topics that are not subject to a public hearing for this evening. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and I will open the public comment. Do we have any speaker cards?
We do not.
Is there anybody wishing to speak tonight? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public comment. We have no reports for the commissions this evening, and so we'll go right to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda items are deemed to be non-controversial. Does anybody wish to pull? We have the minutes. Does anybody wish to pull anything for discussion?
Motion to approve.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are passed. So moving right along, we're going to have the Agriculture Forestall District 23001 at 1105 Stewart Road. Mr. Laubhacker, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. Mr. Taylor Pruitt has applied to enroll approximately 46.95 acres of land located at 1105 Stewarts Road into the Barn Swamp AFD. The parcel is zoned A1 General Agricultural and designated rural lands on the 2045 Comprehensive Plan. The parcel is located within 1 mile of the core of the Barn Swamp AFD and is directly adjacent to other parcels within the district. The applicant intends to use the property for recreational purposes and potential tenant farming on the cleared portion of the property, which is approximately 5 acres. The applicant does not plan to pursue any timbering activities, and there are no plans for future development. As articulated in an email sent to the Planning Commission yesterday, staff has corrected the number of acres designated as prime farmland by the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service web soil survey data and corrected the ranking of the habitat core that lies within the property. The AFD Advisory Committee recommended approval of the application by a vote of 7-0 at its October 19, 2023 meeting. Staff finds that the proposed addition meets all state and local requirements for inclusion in the Barn Swamp AFD and recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed addition to the Board of Supervisors. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for staff. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Just for my own sake, you mentioned the applicant doesn't plan any timbering activities, but he could if he wanted to, by right, can't he?
Tree clear. So condition 3 reads that tree clearing on the property shall be limited to the minimum necessary to accommodate the project as determined by the Director of Planning. So it would be up to the Director of Planning for approval.
Any other questions for staff? If not, thank you very much. I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards?
We do not.
I will close does anybody wish to speak on this item, on the AFD? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public comment and open it up for discussion by the commissioners.
Move to approve AFD-23-0001.
I want to say something, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've struggled with the AFDs for a number of years in terms of the criteria associated with it and the soils. But one of the additions we had to the staff report was the natural and cultural heritage piece and the prime ag in that piece. And as well as we had the cores, the habitat cores that were also laid out in there. One of the criteria that the state has in its code is the environment benefits of retaining the lands in the district for agriculture and forestall. And I think that study and the documents that the staff applied highlights that environmental quality associated with that property, and clearly is a clear reason to include this, not only in the Barnesville Swamp, but how it connects the other elements of the landscape. So if you take a look at the corridor pieces that connect and go through that, in fact, it would attach both of those to the adjacent to the east side of the property. So I thought that was a nice addition to the staff report and a nice application of that natural and cultural study that we did during the last year. And having said that, I would entertain your motion, Mr. Conley.
So move approval.
Voice vote, please. We have a motion on the floor.
Okay. Mr. Krupp,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor,
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman,
Aye.
Mr. Rose,
Aye.
Ms. Knoll. Aye. Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on the agenda will be a combination of special use permit 23002, Westport Subdivision tie into the James City Service Authority, and the special use permit 23023, 5207, Colonnade Parkway, Liberty Ridge, James City Service. There will be 4 votes for each of the applications for consistency and then for the approval. Mr. Wysong, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Ms. Carlin Owens of the James City Service Authority has applied on behalf of the authority for 2 special use permits to install 2 water main connections within the Westport Subdivision and Liberty Ridge Subdivision, respectively. The purpose of this installation is to connect the 2 currently existing independent well systems to the central JCSA system to streamline permitting and to increase efficiencies within the system. For context, both the Westport subdivision and Liberty Ridge subdivisions are by right major subdivisions that are zoned A1, and the majority of lots are located outside of the primary service area and designated for rural lands. As by right major subdivisions outside the PSA, a central well system was required for each subdivision at the time of planned development. The proposed location of both water main extensions is located within subdivision street right-of-ways located outside the primary service area. The comprehensive plan and the county's utility policy strongly discourage expansion of utilities outside of the PSA, and as such, planning staff is unable to recommend approval of either application. Section 15.2-2232 of the Code of Virginia states in part that no public facility be allowed unless the Planning Commission finds the location of the facility substantially consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. As previously stated, the proposed location of the installations is outside the PSA, which is typically the resource we use to determine consistency. As such, staff is unable to recommend approval of consistency or both of these applications. However, should the Planning Commission recommend approval of these applications to the Board of Supervisors, we have provided proposed conditions that would ensure the utilities cannot be further expanded beyond the existing development. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I believe JCSA has prepared a presentation on both items after this. Thank you.
Want to hear the questions first or the presentation?
I'd like to hear the
Powell, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Doug Powell. I'm the General Manager of the James City Service Authority, also known as JCSA, address 119 Tuning Road. With me tonight are Mike Ushak, who is our Chief Water Engineer, and Carlin Owens, who is our Water Engineer. As Mr. Wysong did, I'm going to speak to both applications tonight together. I understand that the requests before you tonight are a little bit unusual, but the circumstances behind them are also unusual, and there are some significant and important benefits to JCSA's customers if the requests for the SUPs are approved. For these reasons, the JCSA Board of Directors authorized the submission of these SUPs. Before I address the SUPs themselves, I think it would be helpful to discuss how the JCSA water system operates. The JCSA's water system is comprised of the central system, which is the predominant part of our system, and then 8 of what we call independent systems. The JCSA's central system is denoted in blue in this map and serves approximately a population of 60,000. As you know, our source of water is groundwater, and the primary source of this water is the Five Forks Water Treatment Plant located there. However, other smaller production wells are located throughout the service area and also provide water, and these wells are denoted with the blue dots with the numbers behind them in different areas throughout the central system. The 8 independent systems are located in different areas of the county, but are all outside of the primary service area, or PSA. These 8 wells and these 8 independent systems are denoted in green on the map, and they are not connected to the central system. So some of the independent systems are in this area, a couple over here, and then the 2 that we're talking about tonight, Liberty Ridge and Westport, are right here. These independent systems currently provide water only to their distinct subdivision. While none of the independent systems are currently connected to the central system, 2 of the independent systems, Liberty Ridge and Westport, are directly adjacent to the central system and are also directly adjacent to the PSA along Centerville Road. And these 2 independent systems are the subjects of the special use permit request. For each of these 2 independent systems, JCSA proposes to connect them to the central system. For Liberty Ridge, the connection entails the installation of 240 feet of new 12-inch water main denoted in red on this map right here. I would note that the entirety of this 240 feet is completely within the PSA, and then there's another 400 feet of pipe that would need to be upsized. For Westport, connecting to the central system would entail the installation of 250 feet of new water main, again denoted in red, all but 50 feet of it within the PSA. There's several reasons JCSA is coming forward with these requests now. The JCSA Board of Directors held a retreat in the spring and discussed a number of issues related to the long-term sustainability of the utility system. Inclusion of Liberty Ridge and Westport into the central system was one of the issues that was discussed. One of the main reasons for making this request now is that one of our older well facilities, known as W4, and I'm going to go back to the main map. W4 is right here. It's located near the Pottery, and as you can see, it's also relatively close to Liberty Ridge and Westport. This facility, W4, is in need of rehabilitation at a cost of approximately $1 million. Consolidating Liberty Ridge and Westport in the central system will allow us to take W4 offline and avoid approximately $1 million in expense, and at the same time maintain our current capacity. We're also currently adding corrosion control to all of our central system wells, and taking W4 offline now will mean that we can avoid the cost associated with adding corrosion control to that facility as well. Finally, I would mention that JCSA undertook several years ago an effort to identify vulnerabilities and risks within our system, and W4, with its age, its location near a rail line, and its difficult access, was identified as a vulnerability in the system. When considering the applications, I think it's important to note that public utilities already exist outside the PSA in this area, and they were approved through the county planning process. Liberty Ridge and Westport are already served by public water lines that are owned and operated by JCSA. If the SUPs are approved with the conditions recommended by the planning staff, no other lots can connect to the JCSA water line other than lots that are already platted without an SUP amendment. Staff report indicates that other extensions have been previously approved when sufficient public benefit has existed. JCSA believes sufficient public benefit does exist in this case, which is the reason that the project is being proposed. Consolidating these 2 systems into the central system will result in improved public health and safety and provide significant operational benefits and efficiencies in the following ways. It will provide additional redundancy and improved fire protection for Liberty Ridge, Westport, and portions of the central system that are in proximity to these connections. Adding the Liberty Ridge and Westport facilities will also allow JCSA to avoid the rehabilitation expenses mentioned earlier associated with an older well facility, W4, that's currently in the central system. Consolidating Liberty Ridge and Westport will result in 2 fewer Department of Environmental Quality permits, reducing resource requirements for managing these permits. Consolidating Liberty Ridge and Westport will also result in 2 fewer Virginia Department of Health permits, resulting in streamlined sampling and reporting requirements. Water produced at the Liberty Ridge and Westport facilities is less costly than water produced by the Five Forks Water Treatment Plant. The additional capacity of these wells, if included in the central system, will reduce the load on the Five Forks Water Treatment Plant, thereby reducing overall costs to operate the system. And then finally, I would just mention that there are significant costs associated with the operation of independent water systems. The small independent systems operate at a financial loss due to a limited customer base. Operation of the Liberty Ridge and Westport systems is currently subsidized by central system customers, and tying them into the central system will reduce the subsidization. I would note that several goals listed in the staff report as benefits of the PSA are achieved by consolidating these systems. To encourage efficient utilization of public facilities and services, to help ensure that such facilities and services are available where and when needed, and to increase the public benefit per dollar spent. In closing, I recognize the staff report states that these requests represent an extension of public utilities outside of the PSA. I would submit that the extension of public utilities outside the PSA was approved when the subdivisions were approved. This request, if approved with the conditions in the planning staff report, does not facilitate further development. Other than lots that are already platted, no other lots can connect to the JCSA water line without an SUP amendment. The spirit, intent, and goals of the PSA are preserved, while at the same time achieving significant health, safety, and operational improvements for the JCSA and its customers. I want to thank you for your consideration tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the staff or the applicant? Sir.
Good evening, Mr. Powell. I just have a couple questions. First of all, both Liberty Ridge and Westport, they operate on a central well. Each has central wells, correct?
Each has their own central
Their own
well.
central
Yes,
well.
yes, sir.
And I know in the long run, central wells are expected to fail in the long run. But are there any indications at this point that the central wells are in nearing that situation, or?
Those particular wells, the exact opposite would be true. They are fairly new facilities. They are oversized for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're designed to be sufficient to provide fire protection to the subdivision, but also those subdivisions didn't build out to the degree that they were supposed to. So no, those two wells, and part of the reason we want to include them in the central system is because those wells are in very good shape.
Then the second question, you mentioned there were 8 independent systems in the county, and if these two connect, then that would be 6 independent systems. What assurances are there that this won't stand as a precedent to start connecting the other 6 independent systems into the central system?
So I think if you look at this first map that I showed, these other independent systems are some distance away from the PSA. Liberty Ridge and Westport are the only 2 that are adjacent to it or even really that close to it. So I think that's one reason, just proximity. The cost to tie these other very small independent systems in, given the distance, would be prohibitive. And then the other is related to what I was mentioning earlier. The other wells of the independent systems are relatively small, little older. They wouldn't really provide much benefit to the central system.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? I had a couple, Mr. Powell, because this was kind of like deja vu for me when I recall the comp plan. And one of the issues was the independent wells. And we had a county subdivision ordinance that required you to bring these systems underneath the JCSA for maintenance. And on top of it, if I recall, both of these were running a deficit to the tune of $175,586, which the ratepayers, in fact, end up paying for it with no benefit to the county. In this particular case, I would agree with you that when we approved this, it was automatically into the system. But the other one is, I think the cost benefit for this thing to the county with additional water sources, and there's actually a real benefit to the county. So if you had to look at the cost benefit analysis in terms of the construction cost, which you're estimating at about how much?
The construction,
for both?
yes, to tie them in, we're looking at about $600,000.
Plus you're going to end up saving $1 million plus saving the dollars for the rehab piece.
The million-dollar savings at W4 includes both the rehab and the cost to add corrosion control. So it's about a total million-dollar savings by taking W4 offline.
And to the overall capacity of water to the county, this actually would increase it too. Is that right?
What we would say is it will maintain capacity. I think health departments, from a health department perspective, I think they would see it as an increase to our capacity. DEQ is not going to necessarily increase our withdrawal amount. So, we operate under two different permits. I think with the health department, we could make an argument that it will increase capacity. Doesn't mean DEQ is going to allow us to withdraw more water.
Are there any other questions or comments for staff?
Just
I'm
one.
sorry.
Mr. Powell, good evening. I think we last year amended the master plan to Chickahominy Park, is that right? To consider possibly putting in a water plant to come out of the Chickahominy River.
Oh,
So,
yes.
I mean, just,
Yeah.
I mean, that's far-reaching future, so.
Right.
But, so would there be a benefit in connecting these communities? If we were ever to have a water source that came from freshwater or surface water versus well, would this help with water distribution in the future and allow those wells to be taken offline altogether if we had an alternative water source?
So if I understand your question, you're asking if we had an alternative surface water in the future, would that allow us to take some of these, I guess you're asking specifically Liberty Ridge and Westport, if we would take those offline?
Right, if they were connected into the system.
I don't know that I want to answer that question completely tonight. We would not need the capacity. If we had a surface water source from the Chickahominy River, I don't think we would need the capacity that those wells provide. So I think it would be something we could consider. Wouldn't necessarily want to make that commitment tonight.
Oh, sure, no, understood. So I'm just thinking out
Right.
a distance, so thanks.
Dr. Rose?
Mr. Powell, you presented a lot of the benefits of these connections. Is there any downside that needs to be considered of making these connections?
From my perspective, no. I think this is, for the Service Authority, this really is significant benefits from health, safety, and operational perspectives, and I don't really see a downside from the Service Authority perspective.
Just to follow on to Mr. O'Connor's, he was specifically talking about the desal plant out at the Chickahominy River Park. But if the water source became from Newport News, would you still be able to take those offline?
If we were, again, this is somewhat speculative, but if we were going to buy water from Newport News, I don't think we'd want to buy any more than we have to. So if we were going to be buying water from another entity, we'd probably want to maintain as much capacity as we can with the system that we have now.
At a cheaper rate?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant, Ms. Stapp? Sir?
We no longer have a central well requirement in the rural lands, isn't that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So the argument that the central wells is part of our growth management no longer holds. If these two neighborhoods were just being proposed today, they wouldn't need a central well requirement. They would just hook up to JCSA automatically, right?
Well, my understanding, and planning staff might be better to answer this, my understanding is, I mean, they're still outside the PSA. So I believe they would be subject to the 20 acre, but I don't know that I'm the best person to answer
Yeah, the
that.
20 acre, but not the central well.
That was actually right. They would have to meet the minimum lot size, first of all, so the design itself couldn't happen. The other thing is that, great memory, we did amend the ordinance, so they would have to do wells on individual lots.
Oh, I see, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? Thank you very much,
All right.
Mr. Powell.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Frank,
I'm sorry.
not for Mr. Powell, but if I have a question for staff.
Sure. Mr. Weissong, please.
So, and you have to kind of spoon feed this to me because I'm not as familiar with these areas on the big map. But I guess to my eyes looking at it, when you take Liberty Ridge and you take Westport, you say, well, they're just very close, they're adjacent. So it's not a very big thing to, in my mind, we're pulling them into a PSA, whether or not there's still a line and they're an exception. The acres behind them now are adjacent to the acres who are in the PSA, right? So when I look at that map and I see the two green spots for Liberty Ridge and Westport, is there a lot of land along that red corridor that other developers wouldn't want to say, yes, I'm building a big neighborhood and I also want to connect to your public water?
And just to make sure I understand your question, do you mean just generally, or do you mean connecting through the well
I
facilities?
mean, to me, it seems like a domino. It seems like you draw a PSA with hopefully a lot of thought behind it, because you want to motivate infill and reuse and economy of scale and economy of transportation, all those things. And then when you grant an exception such as the one proposed, to me, I feel that just threw that out the window. It seems to set a very large precedent that because it saved us money, that the policy or the loftier goal is for sale kind of. I guess I'm trying to figure out how much is it worth to have a policy that says it's very important to us to keep growth inside the PSA, but because our infrastructure is getting old and maybe we don't have enough reserves or we didn't plan well enough, here's a way out. So I'm just wondering how much of that is all that land already developed? I guess in a general sense, I'm trying to figure out how many other Westports and Liberty Ridges are on the horizon.
So that's a great question. Outside of the PSA, the land is zoned agricultural, and if somebody did want to come in and try to hook up to public water and sewer, we do require the SUP. And so in the county utility policy, there's language that says we strongly discourage any sort of connection outside of the PSA. So from the planning perspective, even though, to Mr. Powell's point, some of these connections are very small and it is right next to the PSA, we just take the view that if it's outside the PSA, we can't recommend approval. I think that development potential that you're talking about, we do have a process in place that would let us bring this back before the commission and the board to evaluate, and our recommendation would very likely be the same, unless there was a circumstance like we've had in the past where, let's say, a sewer main was broken or there was some sort of public health emergency that would necessitate a connection. So there is a measure in place for us to evaluate future applications like that, but as precedent, staff recommends denial for this kind of connection because we do consider it essentially an expansion of the PSA. I don't know if that exactly answered your question, but it's a good point to raise.
Thank you.
This is a follow-on. Is it true that we used to have a county ordinance that required a major subdivision to have a central well, and then if it did, it automatically then became the problem of the JCSA? And we no longer have that ordinance in place.
Yes, we did used to have a requirement that you had to put in a central well for a major by right subdivision. And it is true that we amended that ordinance such that we don't allow it today.
In fairness to the question being asked, it is true that we have approved for Colonial Heritage as well as another development outside of the PSA on Centerville Road as an exception, and that was done in front of an SUV process to the board. So there is always the likelihood that could happen. It has in the past. Is that not true?
We have approved extensions in the past, is correct.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
So just
Okay.
one, if we look at the map in front of us, we're not redrawing the PSA line, correct?
Correct.
So, like at the bottom, we have Governor's Land, which is outside the PSA, but that shows as being served by the central system. We have other pieces. So, you know, in essence, I think I would argue that we're not changing the PSA. We're changing the use of a utility, if you will, for the benefit of all the citizens in James City County.
Are there any other questions or comments for the staff or the applicant? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Wysong.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry? and I will open up the public comment. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, we don't.
Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this item? Please, sir, please come up, your name and address, please.
My name is Wade Vaughn. I live in Westport, 3464 Westport. And I don't know a lot about this, but I just heard about it, so I wanted to come in and see what was going on. And I have a couple of questions to maybe the engineering team. What will...
If you can, sir, this time is for you to talk to us.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sure Mr. Powell will be more than happy to have a sidebar with you and answer all of your questions along with the engineers.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to tell us?
Okay, my question is, will this connection influence water pressure or water quality since we're interconnecting two different systems off of two different aquifers? So I'm wondering if we have, it sounds like we're connecting an existing overall master system into two communities that are now off two different wells. So I'm wondering if the water pressure will change to our communities, our two little communities there, and will the integration of the two water systems change the overall water quality and the components and the overall performance. I did have a third question that came up as I listened to the discussion. With the well 4 coming out, will the benefit of this, will this be a benefit in overall performance and capacity of the system? I don't know what the capacity of well 4 is versus the two that are being introduced into the system. So I heard that was a benefit. I'm not sure what the balancing of what well 4 produced versus the other two wells at Liberty Ridge and Westport.
Thank you very much for your comment. I'm sure Mr. Powell will be happy to talk with you, sir. Are there any other comments from the audience who would like to speak on this issue? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion. Sure.
I'll kick it off. I have voted for connections outside of the PSA in the past, but I feel that I've made those exceptions mostly based on health concerns and safety, and such as the mobile home park off of Centerville Road. I think that was a very clear need. In here, I think the overriding issues are cost savings and efficiency, and this is where I get concerned with the application, and because I do, even though it doesn't change the dotted PSA line on the map, in my opinion, it does start to set precedents, and that's one of the reasons I asked the question about the 6 other central wells, or the 6 other wells in the system. How likely would this be a precedent to start bringing the other ones on, even though they might be a little further from the connection point? So I'm concerned. The comprehensive plan took a great deal of time and effort to try to lay out the reasons why we wanted to not extend utilities, why we wanted to preserve the lands outside of the PSA. And if the existing central wells at Liberty Ridge and Westport are robust and not indicating any failure, I share Mr. Rogers' concern about a potential domino effect. And you've heard me talk in other cases, not related to connections, but just the idea of setting precedents. And that's a real concern for me. So I think in this case, I couldn't support the 2 requests.
Mr. Holman.
I don't share the concern. One of the ways that the central well requirement, when we had one, discouraged development outside the PSA was the sheer cost of drilling the well, which I think was quite high. I forget the numbers for these, but it was over $1 million each to drill these 2 wells, and that was back in, I don't know, 2005 or 6. It's probably much higher now. That requirement no longer exists, and even if it did, the developer would still have to incur that cost to put in a central well requirement. The other 6 independent well systems, as Mr. Powell mentioned, are significantly removed. And so if they did apply for an SUP for this, one of the legs that is operational efficiency wouldn't apply here. There may still be a health and safety reason to do it, in which case it would be considered on that basis. But so I plan to support this. I think it's good for county residents. I don't think it threatens more development than we're already going to get. And I'll leave it at that.
Still,
I think we can all remember, probably 2 years ago, we did turn down a developer who wanted to extend the PSA for the very reasons that we didn't want to extend the PSA on Bush Springs Road. And that was to help a developer, but it wasn't really helping the people on Bush Springs Road. However, this is a benefit to these people, plus to the JCSA, to our water system. So I thoroughly agree with that.
O'Connor?
Rarely do Mr. Haldeman and I concur. So, it's, he finally got it right. No, just, as I said before, I think there's a lot of benefits, whether long-term we have one system that has a different water supply, or in this instance, we're creating, one system for the larger community. Also, there's a section to be developed in front of Westport that's within the PSA. I don't know what the plans are to connect that to Westport or to public service if that's ever developed, but I think that this benefits the greater county and is good for JCSA as well.
Rose? Rose? Rogers? I share Rich's point on the PSA because it is a growth policy. And on the other hand, I do agree with him that when they made the Centerville piece with the mobile home, that was for a health thing. And so when I came to trying to understand the issue of the consistency to the comp plan, I actually went back and took a look at something, and there was a comment within the staff report that I thought was kind of revealing, and it was along the lines of the comp plan, but it talked about PSA policy that we have to control of growth. But there were some other goals. There were, matter of fact, I think 4 goals that are laid out from the comp plan for the PSA policy, and 2 of them struck me that I thought made sense. The first one was to encourage efficient utilization of public facilities and services, water and sewer, roadways, schools, fire protection, police, whatever. I think this very much so meets that goal for the PSA policy that we do have in the comp plan. The second one that I thought made sense to me was to help ensure such facilities and services are available where and when needed. And I think as we go down the road and we start talking about water availability and what this does to the overall system, it's actually a plus to the system itself and for the long-term benefit of the citizens. So even though I know it's not something that is hard to understand in terms of the comp plan and the growth piece, I think those 2 goals out of the comp plan made me decide to support the consistency issue that the staff brought up. And so I intend to vote in favor of this. Do I have a motion? And we'll need 4 motions, right? And the first one would be the consistency on special use permit 23002, the Westport one.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval for SUP 23-0022 with attached conditions.
You want to do the consistency first or the approval? Doesn't matter.
I said approval, but if I'm out of order, why? I'll change it.
I think we need to do the consistency first.
I move that we recommend that SUP 23-0022, the Westport piece, is consistent with the 2045 comprehensive plan.
We have a motion on the floor, Ms. Isianis.
Mr. Kropp?
No.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Alderman.
I move that we recommend approval of SUP 23-0022, the Westport tie-in, with conditions.
Motion on the floor, Ms. Isonis?
Mr. Crop? Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so I need a motion for consistency now on SUP 230023, the Liberty Ridge.
I move that we find SUP 23-0023 consistent with the adopted 2045 comprehensive plan.
Ms. Isonis, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Crop?
No.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. O'Connor?
I'll move that SUP 23-0023, that the Planning Commission recommend approval of that to the Board of Supervisors.
We have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Crop?
No.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
No.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is special use permit 23-0026, 206, the Maine Detached Accessory Apartments, and the staff presentation. Ms. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Mr. Jason Buckley of Promart Custom Homes has applied for a special use permit to allow a detached accessory apartment to be constructed within a detached accessory structure. The property is located at 206 The Maine, zoned R1 Limited Residential, and is designated low-density residential on the 2045 Comprehensive Plan Land Use Map. The detached garage will be approximately 1,120 square feet, and the proposed apartment will be approximately 356 square feet, which is approximately 32% of the total floor area. The R1 zoning district allows detached accessory apartments as a specially permitted use in accordance with Section 2432B of the James City County Zoning Ordinance. Staff has reviewed the proposed design and finds that most requirements have been met. Although the property owners currently do not live at the residence, they are planning to move into the house in the future, and a condition has been included that would require the property owners to provide confirmation that they intend to live in the house or apartment within 12 months from the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Staff finds this proposal to be compatible with surrounding development and consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is also available. Thank you.
Questions for staff or the applicant? Thank you very much, Ms. Lynch. And I will open the public comment piece. Do we have any speaker cards?
No.
Is there anybody that wishes to speak on this item? Hearing none, I will close the public comment period and open it up for discussion or a motion.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve SUP 23-0026 for the accessory apartment.
Have a motion? Do we have any conditions with this? No.
Yes, we do. And associated conditions, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a vote on the floor.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Polster?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, just to make a point, since we've already passed it, the accessory housing is part of the, was one of the recommendations for the Workforce Housing Task Force to make housing more affordable at the lower end. And the condition that somebody has to, that a family member has to live in it detracts from that policy. I know it's the ordinance and I supported it, but it'd be nice if we could start making some progress on the workforce housing, the recommendations on the Workforce Housing Task Force.
I thought about the same issue that you brought up, and then I remembered we approved one for an accessory underneath the conditions of a family member, and then they came right back and then turned it into an Airbnb, and I kind of felt like I got had on that one. And so I kind of had mixed feelings about it, but I agree with you that we need to do something, and accessory facilities are clearly a way to help us in that thing. Rich?
Just to clarify, I thought, and staff could help here, I thought that the requirement was that a family member has to live in either the main residence or the accessory apartment, either one of those, and not, and so that would provide latitude for a non-family member to occupy the other dwelling. Isn't that correct?
Yes, they only have to live in one.
Oh, good. I stand corrected. Thank you.
Mr. Kraft, great.
All right.
Has years of experience.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lynch. Okay, so we'll move on to special use permit 23-0028, 9273 Richmond Road, Contractor's Office and Warehouse. Ms. Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Ms. Erin Martin with Crossroad Custom Builders Incorporated has applied for a special use permit requesting to allow for the construction of an approximately 6,000 square foot building to be used as a contractor's office and warehouse. The subject property is located at 9273 Richmond Road, zoned A1 General Agricultural, classified as rural lands on the 2045 Comprehensive Plan, and located outside the primary service area. According to information provided by the applicant, the existing residence is currently occupied and will remain as such. The professional contractor's business, where current operations are off property, specializes in the building of custom homes, additions, or interior improvements. As articulated in an email sent to the Planning Commission yesterday, condition number 12 has been removed. Condition number 12, stormwater management and tree buffer, was removed because condition number 7, landscape and screening plan, will ensure that sufficient screening is provided around the proposed use. In addition, landscape buffers, tree clearings, and plantings would be reviewed in accordance with the landscape ordinance during the site plan process. The remaining proposed conditions would collectively mitigate any potential impacts. In summary, staff finds the proposed conditions will mitigate impacts to surrounding properties and development. Staff finds that this proposal is compatible with surrounding zoning and development and is generally consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. As such, staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors. Should the Planning Commission recommend approval of this case, staff has included the proposed conditions for your review. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is available to you as well.
Questions from staff or the applicant? Sir.
I have two. Hi.
Hello.
Condition number 8 prohibits, storage of heavy construction equipment, yet permits heavy trucks and even cement mixers. Why the difference? Why?
That is a very good question. The difference is for the purpose of this use for the business, is my understanding. So, but I know after having conversations with the applicant, that they will be primarily using trucks that they will get in and use those off-site. So,
I wouldn't be storing them there, but
So-
it does permit the storage of heavy trucks, and so if permitting one classification and not the other, even though they're the same sizes and could be the same weights and so forth and the same visual impact and everything else. I don't know, just curious.
I'm sorry, I don't have a stronger response for the distinction.
Okay.
Apologize for that.
My second question is condition number 9, special stormwater criteria credits. How do they work?
Condition number 9, the impervious cover capture.
In front of me here, but it references special stormwater criteria credits, I think.
Okay, that's, sorry, that's condition number 13. And so for the This is in response to normal criteria that is above and beyond what the normal standards are for stormwater. It is my understanding. And so James City County has a special stormwater criteria that, again, ensures adequate water quality and prevention of pollution. So the gist of it is that this is a measure that goes above and beyond the normal regulations.
What's the credit? It is actually number 9. It says special stormwater criteria credits for the capture and conveyance of existing impervious cover to proposed on-site stormwater management facilities shall be determined by the Director of Stormwater and Resource Protection Division. There's a credit there. Is it another benefit that they get for doing this, or
That is.
am I not reading that correctly? I don't.
Well,
Thank you.
excuse me for just a moment.
I don't object to it. I'm trying to understand it. That's all.
Correct. In terms of it just states, all proposed impervious cover on the property resulting from the proposed site improvements shall be captured and conveyed to on-site stormwater management facilities. But the credits for the capture and conveyance of existing impervious cover to proposed on-site stormwater management facilities shall be determined by the Director of Stormwater and Resource Protection Division. With respect to the credits, I'll do my best to explain that. It is, I'm stumped. So, sorry.
I don't need the answer to this to vote tonight.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm happy to
Could you
provide
send me an
a
email?
more articulate.
Just for my own edification,
Okay.
I'd be curious. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant? Thank you very much, Mr. Yates.
Okay.
I will open the public hearing. Is there any speaker cards?
No.
Anybody wish to speak on this issue? Sir?
Sir, my name is Shelton Daniels, and I am located at 9334 Richmond Road, which on that map, I am the blue water line across the street. So go back one. There you go. So the plat that's just north of that is 62 acres is our farm. So thank you, Mr. Halderman, for making that one point. Number 8, no outdoor storage equipment, machinery, or heavy construction equipment shall be permitted on the property, provided, however, that trucks and other vehicles such as tractor trucks, semi-trailers, tractor truck, trailer combinations, dump trucks, and concrete mixer trucks are expressly permitted. That is a direct contradiction. It is an eyesore. It is noise. Trust me, Route 60 is not very smooth, and those create, they literally can shake my house, and I am 333 feet from the road. I know that because I built it. The number 15, the SUP is not severable. So my question when it comes to the special use permit is, does it convey to the new and future owner? How does it look in 20 years? Is this, it's a beautiful building. I have no objection to the look of the building, but in 20 years, I'm still gonna be there. And when I am, does this become a retail space? How do they sell it? And then how do they adopt that use for their own use in the future? It is a business. I highly doubt that in 30, 40, 50, 60 years, it will still be a business, and that's probably not where they will operate. And for that reason, I wonder, then what? What across the street will I be dealing with? It's 12 employees. I am a business owner myself. I do always intend to expand. I do want to get bigger. So if you have 12 employees, what's the next goal when it's 15? And what does the future look like for expansion? And is it that business? And is it, if it's a different location, then where's it going? And then what becomes the use of that building? Because it does expressly say, at least here and now, that there's no retail sales. But in the future, how do we know that if it is ever sold? Also, the applicant anticipates receiving 1 major delivery per month. Is there any recourse for me when it's more than that because their business is growing and booming? What do I do when there is constantly trucks in and out and creating heavy traffic? Moreover, just 2 lots where you can see to the west, you'll see multiple land kind of subdivided almost. There is a bus stop right there, and that doesn't look very far maybe on the map, but they're very close. And there's a bunch of children that load up on the school bus there too. So you've got that condition. Fire Station 1 on Forge Road, that's 10 to 11 minutes away. That's a wood shop. my farm is a tree farm. If a fire is created in that wood shop, what is the threat to my land and my agricultural use? Future expansions, if they do choose to build and expand on the building, do we get to have another hearing and do I get to have any say-so on that? Per the adopted 24 comprehensive plan, as page 6 of 7, per the adopted comprehensive plan, appropriate primary uses include traditional agriculture, forestry activities, but also innovative agriculture, horticulture, silviculture, specialty or niche farming, commercial and non-commercial equine opportunities, agritourism, rural-based public or commercial recreation, rural support business, and certain public or semi-public institutional uses that require a spacious site and are compatible with the natural and rural surroundings. None of these apply in this case. And yet, the staff recommendation that finds the proposal is compatible with surrounding zoning, which is in direct conflict to what it just said. It's from their documents. Having said all that, it is a nice building. If you've ever been out there, you would see that it is pretty much an eyesore at this point. So my intent is not to say no, but to have my questions answered because my concern is the future. This building supposedly is not the problem. It's the future that I worry that we're opening a can of worms and then potentially allowing more commercialization across the street from my farm. That's my concern.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion. Commissioners.
I'm having a problem with condition number 8. I just, it is a potential eyesore to have cement mixers and semi-tractor trailers stored on it. I think it's a nice building, and I love the idea of expanding a business in James City County. That's my one problem.
Well, I'd point everybody to condition number 7, which says prior to site plan approval, a landscape and screening plan shall be submitted to the Director of Planning. The landscape and screening plan shall provide at a minimum native and evergreen plantings and fencing that shall effectively screen the storage and or parking areas associated with the project from public roads and adjacent properties. And for Mr. Crop, it says that 50% of the new planting shall be native species.
Thank you.
So, I mean, this proposal, that this doesn't include a landscaping plan, but I would expect that when submitted, they'd have to meet with that requirement of screening from the road and adjacent properties.
Any other comments? I share Mr. Haldeman's concern on the truck piece, the ambiguity of it. I understand what you just said, Mr. O'Connor. It seems to me that when we've done the industrial park SUPs before, there was a requirement in terms of fencing and not being able to see heavy equipment. As a matter of fact, I've heard us even ask several times what type of equipment would be stored there and would it be visible on that. And so if I'm incorrect about that, please let me know for it. So this is only a 4-acre lot of which the building and the rest of it is going to be very close to the front of this building. And so I'm kind of concerned about that traffic issue. I mean, we just raised that same issue of trafficability for heavy equipment with a solar farm on 60 and transferring back and forth. And so I'm trying to understand what that real impact is and what's permitted. Is there any clarification from that from the county attorney or from the staff at all?
I've got a question that might help. And Susie, I'm sorry, I'm up here and I can't talk to you down there, but if the applicant is here, maybe they would have an explanation of what they intend to store there, is my first comment. Second is, in looking at this, I'm not seeing a specific area where this type of equipment would be stored, at least based on this site plan. So maybe it would be helpful if you or the applicant had clarification on that as well.
Sure.
Because what I'm seeing on the site plan is just asphalt parking that's located near the office, and then a gravel parking lot with marked spaces next to the warehouse. And maybe some areas for parking in the back, but I'm not sure what the site plan says, so.
Good evening. Sean Lemon, owner of Cross. We do not really intend to have any concrete mixers. We don't own any of those. The only things that we own currently are some small cargo trailers, 6x12 cargo trailers, and one flatbed trailer for a small tractor. There's a little bit of area behind the building where we would park those so they would not be visible from the road. So I'm not sure why those particular trucks were included as a condition or permittable scenario, but we would not intend to have any large equipment like that or trucks.
Would you mind if we struck that?
I have no problem with that.
So we're going to, you've agreed to strike condition, which number?
8. We would have small trailers there.
No,
we
but
would
it's
not have
the-
cement
Not
mixers.
strike the whole condition, but just the permitting of, I don't have it in front of me again, but just prohibit the storage of heavy construction equipment and, no outdoor storage of equipment, machinery, heavy construction equipment, or tractor trucks, semi-trailers, tractor truck trailer combinations, dump trucks, and cement mixers, period. And then all dumpsters shall be screened.
You agree, do you know what you just agreed to, or would you like that rephrased again?
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, just to clarify that one more time.
Sure.
So, okay, so we have no outdoor storage of equipment, machinery, heavy construction equipment shall be permitted on the property. We all agree to that statement, correct? Okay. Then provided, however, trucks and other vehicles such as tractor trucks, is that, of these, to be stricken would be tractor trucks. Is that a yes or no?
I don't know what tractor trucks are. Those are big. I don't want to strike out, pickup trucks and the type of trailers or panel trucks or so forth that he needs for his business.
True.
But a tractor trailer, or the tractor or the trailer, or certainly a cement mixer, would not be permitted, and you're okay with that?
I am okay. The only types of trailers we would be having there would be something a pickup truck could pull.
Oh.
So we would not have any semi-trucks there.
Okay.
So just pickup truck size trailers is all we would ever have.
Sorry, I hate some of these restrictions. I mean, if we're gonna get into this, then I would like to strike that, we get rid of, we strike machinery from it because, he might have a Bobcat or a backhoe or something that's there and it could be getting worked on, and do we want, I think this whole number 8 is tough. So, he's gonna have a wood shop there, so are we saying we're not gonna allow tractor trailers to make deliveries? It's a small construction business, he may have a small dump truck. If it's a Ford F-350 with a dump bed, are we gonna call that a dump truck and use that? We're starting to split hairs on this, so.
It refers to storage, it doesn't refer to deliveries.
But these, correct me if, but there wouldn't be storage expressly for these items that were listed as the expressly permitted. They're not in great number. He's articulated that he will not be using a concrete mixers, correct? And a dump truck and a tractor trailer. Okay. And then the tractor truck semi-trailer?
I don't know the correct wording that would be,
I don't either.
but pickup truck size trailers. We're not semi-trucks, but pickup truck size trailers. And to your point, we have a smaller John Deere tractor with a front bucket and a grade box on the back. We would likely at some point have a skid steer, Bobcat size equipment, but those would also, if we had those for some reason on the property, there's nowhere to park them in front. They would be in that little back area behind the building itself, so.
And
And it would still be
oh, sorry.
something that's able to be towed on a flat trailer behind a pickup truck.
That doesn't concern.
Well, it doesn't concern you, but that's not what the condition says, right? And, I mean, he might finish one job today and bring his equipment home and go to another job site tomorrow and not unload it and just have it ready to go the next day. I mean, we've been down this road before with other contractor businesses in the area. So, you know, I think if we can amend it to say that small equipment is permitted, I think what we have tried to avoid is having large excavators and anything that was taller and would not be able to be screened from the roadway with landscaping is what Mr. Polster was referring to
Right,
earlier.
exactly.
So, you know, again, I think option 7 addresses a lot of the concerns that we're having, which is that there'll be heavy landscaping to screen it from adjacent properties, and maybe 8 should just be amended to say that, you know, machinery and small equipment will be stored behind the building, and heavy construction equipment will not be permitted on the property. So,
Perfect. I like it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Is that amenable to you, sir?
Sir.
Okay. Any other questions for the staff of the applicant? I had one for staff from our county attorney. Is the SUP is in perpetuity, except that if any of the conditions are violated, do I understand that then it could be rescinded? Am I correct about that?
Yes, you're correct. It's a land use permit, so it does run with the land, but in the event that those conditions are violated, the county board of supervisors can revoke the permit.
And so if the county receives it and comes before the board or an enforcement piece, then we would know, which is typical for what we do in the past.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
I think I'd just offer for the gentleman's comments, you know, if they wanted to do anything that was permitted outside of the SUP, that this would come back to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for any amendments to those uses. So, you know, the expectation of this group is that, you know, what's getting approved today or what the uses would be and any changes would have to go through staff and come back for an amendment to the SUP.
Exactly, thank you.
Which is the legislative process, again, with the public hearing and so on and so forth.
Any other discussion, comments, or do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of SUP 28-0028-9278 Richmond Road, Contractor's Office and Warehouse, with attached conditions
Amendments.
and amendments. Thank you.
Have a motion on the board?
When we say amended, the amended conditions.
Right, the amended conditions. I just want to make sure that
Just
it's.
making sure I
Yeah,
understand.
Amended,
I want to make sure that's there
amended
too.
condition number 8.
Are you comfortable with the condition, or should we restate it? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. O'Connor. I just want to make sure
I think
we're
we're
all-
okay, as long as Susan, Ms. Yates is okay and clear. Are you?
Very good. Just want to be sure.
Okay, good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Polster?
Aye. Okay, so we are on to the last item on our agenda, rezoning 23-006 and SUP 23-0025, 990 and 1006 Brickyard Road, Brickyard Landing Park. Mr. Laubacher, back again.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Mr. Alistair Perkinson, Parks Administrator for the Parks and Recreation Department, has submitted a request to rezone 1006 Brickyard Road to PL Public Lands with a special use permit for both 1006 Brickyard Road and 990 Brickyard Road to allow for a community recreation facility. The subject properties are located at 1006 and 990 Brickyard Road, zoned PL Public Lands, which is 990 Brickyard Road, and 1006 Brickyard Road is zoned A1 General Agriculture. Both properties are classified as community character, conservation, open space, or recreation on the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and located outside of the primary service area. Section 15.2-2232 of the Code of Virginia states in part that no public facility be allowed unless the Planning Commission finds the location of the facility substantially consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. As previously stated, the proposed park location is located inside the land use designation for this use, meaning it is consistent. Staff finds the proposed conditions will mitigate impacts to surrounding properties and development. Staff also finds that this proposal is compatible with surrounding zoning and development and is generally consistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Plan and Zoning Ordinance. To date, there have been no citizen comments regarding this case, and taking all factors favorable into account, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of this application to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the proposed conditions. Thank you for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and Mr. Perkinson is also available.
Questions for staff or the applicant? I've got a couple questions for the applicant, Mr. Perkinson.
Chairman. And I did have a presentation prepared to give you all
Okay.
a little bit of the background. So if you'd
Please.
like to ask
No,
first.
please,
okay,
go.
Great. Alrighty, so I just wanted to kind of go through the process, how we got here with this master plan. A lot of you may be familiar with some of our previous park master plans. Let's see how to do this. All right. So these are just long-term planning documents. They're not detailed site plans. They're based on amenities, based on our Parks and Rec Master Plan, Virginia Outdoors Plan, and feedback from our citizens. And if adopted, these would be completed based on citizen need and available funding. So Brickyard Landing Park is located in the Powhatan District off of Forge Road. It's in an upper portion of the county. Some other parks that kind of serve this region are Upper County Park, Little Creek Reservoir Park, and Diaskin Reservoir Park. And it's really a unique, kind of interesting park. It has a unique history going all the way back to the 18th century. It was used for all sorts of different things up into the 20th century. It was primarily used for brick making, which is why it's called Brickyard Landing. If you go out there, there's quite a few bricks everywhere out there. And then from 1953 to 1997, it was actually the Newport News Shipbuilding Recreation Area. So there's quite a few recreational amenities already on the site. The small portion of the site has been operated by James City County Parks and Recreation for several decades, and in 2020 we were able to purchase the surrounding 119-acre property with the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. So this is the entire property here. If you can see, this little piece here is what we used to operate with the boat ramp, and to kind of zoom in, this is really the kind of developed area, this small piece here. So just some quick background on what we've done since we purchased the property. We have taken stock of the existing recreational amenities, some of which were still in excellent condition despite not being used for 25 years or so. And we worked to rehabilitate some existing small shaded picnic shelters. We constructed and built a new pier, fixed up this old kind of dilapidated pier and fixed up a new pier and a tending pier for the boat ramp. We've just recently replaced a lot of this old white vinyl fencing with some traffic barriers, and we've worked with a volunteer group, kind of an interesting combination of Virginia Master Naturalists and Williamsburg Master Gardeners on some riparian buffer plantings out here as well. So we've made a lot of kind of small visual improvements to the park, and our next step was to kind of work on this overall master plan. So starting there, we looked at how this park is used. So it's primarily used for access to the Chickahominy River. The boat ramp on site is well used, and that's most of the folks that are using it now use that. And then we also wanted to look at feedback from our existing users, as well as look at our 2017 Parks and Recreation Master Plan for certain recreational needs in this area, and the Virginia Outdoors Plan. So with that, we created a draft plan and put it out to the community this summer, and we got some great feedback. 249 online and paper surveys returned, and we held a community input meeting at the James City County Library on June 28th. We had 16 in attendance, but it was a really good cross-section of adjacent property owners, naturalists, boat ramp users, fishermen, mountain bikers. We had quite a few different groups represented in that 16. So we got some good feedback. We got responses from people who had never visited the park, but we got quite a few from our regular daily users. And it really kind of gave us an idea of what people were enjoyed about the park at this point in time and what they were looking for. And so this big kind of graph shows what the top needs were. We got a lot of feedback on trails, improvements to the site, some of which are already underway now, a playground, restrooms, ramp or launch for paddlecraft, areas to fish. So with all that feedback, we took that draft plan and we, did I go the wrong way there? And we added just a few things that were missing that people told us in those meetings and through those surveys that they would really like to see, primarily an accessible paddlecraft launch. And we also added an area for primitive camping for youth organizations, which wasn't a big need on the list, but we saw it as an opportunity. It's a similar amenity that we offer at Upper County Park. It's a leave no trace. It wouldn't include any development, but be able to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, through a permit to come out and use those areas, do community projects in the park and camp there. So that's how we came up with this plan that's before you today. This is really just an enhancement of the existing use of this park. We didn't add a lot. We kept kind of the general theme here. And so we have the existing tending pier, the existing boat ramp, the existing 2 picnic shelters that are on site. We have a utility shed, which is on the footprint of an old restroom that unfortunately had to be taken down. It was no longer structurally sound. Parking for boat trailers, parking for vehicles, a restroom facility to serve these amenities, a quarter-mile paved multi-use trail that would also serve as our ADA access to the picnic shelters and restroom. A playground, a natural area over here on this side, several miles of hiking and mountain biking trails in that forested area, extending the existing pier, a launch for paddlecraft, possible areas, primitive camping for youth organizations, and then if needed, a possible area to expand parking in the future. So as with our other master plans, these would be incorporated into our CIP based on available funding and citizen need. And we do have some of these improvements in our 5-year CIP, I believe out in fiscal year 28, but we are also pursuing other grants to make these improvements should this be approved. So, any questions?
Any questions? Sure.
I want to clarify, when you call this a community park, that's public access. It's not for a particular community.
Yes, it's public access for anyone. We wouldn't have any sort of, yes, it's open.
Okay, I just wasn't sure about that term, community. And if you come with a kayak, stand-up paddleboard, can you drive it down to the water? Is that the plan? Or do you have to
Well, what
carry
we
it
would
from
do
the park?
if we were to build this paddlecraft launch, we would want it to be accessible. So I don't know if you're familiar with the launch we have added at the James City County Marina, but it would be some sort of floating launch that's accessible for users. We do have some folks who use stand-up paddleboards, more canoes and kayaks right now that utilize the boat ramp, but not many. And this would, if we built something there, it would be accessible. So.
Any other questions? The questions that I have probably are for when you finally get down to improving your master plan and getting the details for it. But I got to tell you, I was really impressed with the James River's archaeology report that they laid out there and the level of detail. One of the things that struck me is that there were at least 2 areas that are inside the area between GI and C that were designated for Phase 2. Is it the intent for you to go forward with that Phase 2 or not to disturb those areas?
Typically, we wouldn't disturb. If we were to develop in those areas, we would typically go for that Phase 2. It would depend on, primarily it would depend on this paved multi-use trail. If we needed to cross through any of those, we would likely do a Phase 2 in a contained area where the disturbance would be.
I think the other thing that impressed me about the report, and it brought back the things that I've seen you do with your parks programs before at Jamestown Beach and Freedom Park and the Maitland Farm, where you have some kind of a diorama or something that talks about the history of the area. And I was really struck by the story of the Mr. Jones, who actually worked at that kiln for that period of year, and the history of that for it. So I hope that you have an opportunity to talk about the actual Brickyard and how it was facilitated and what it did. It's really a great story, I thought.
Absolutely. This park has significant potential for historical interpretation on that paved trail, on the other trails, or in those areas through signage or our programming. So.
I would have never thought that they mined this thing for the clay, which is why they did there. I mean, that to me was just really amazing. That's all I had. Any other questions for Mr. Perkinson? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any speaker cards? We do have one oh, first off, I will open the public hearing, and I have one speaker card for Miss Harriet Mead. Meader. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name.
Hello to the chairman
Address,
and the
ma'am?
commission.
Your address?
Pardon?
Your address, please, for the record.
My address is Goochland County, Virginia.
Okay.
But my family has been here in James City County since the 1600s. I'm from the Coles family, and we own the land that is north and east of the Brickyard, what's always been called the Brickyard, which is the Lobbs property. And I have no objection to, we have no objection to this park development, except that our only revenue for our 364 acres surrounding this is hunting, both duck hunting and land hunting. We were sort of assured that this, there was enough buffer and this wouldn't be a problem and wouldn't, you wouldn't come around and say, oh, whoops, we have a park there now and you can't have any hunting. Our other concern is that it's an incredible, I'm sure you know, the Parks and Rec people know for sure, it's a wonderful environmental area. So I would hope that in any construction that's being done, that you have an environmental impact site manager to make sure that when you're moving things, you're not moving invasive species in, and those kinds of things that could damage all of our property. So I just wanted to raise those concerns and make our families' views known.
Could you clarify on this map where your 360 some odd acres are?
On that map, where your green is, okay, starting to the east and north, all the way to the Forge Road, and all the way to what's Uncle's Next, where you see all the housing developments. So it goes, it's 364 acres. Oh, I have an arrow. No, I don't have an arrow.
It's the property below Forge Road.
Yeah, so south of Forge Road and east of the Brickyard, all the way to the.
Sorry to interrupt. So to the right of
Yes,
Brickyard Landing?
to the right of the Brickyard
Take
Landing.
the arrow and
That's Hog Neck Creek that goes through, which is also.
So this area right here.
I was wondering where the duck hunting was coming in from the north.
Yeah. So it goes to the Chickahominy and includes that creek and goes over to the developed property on the right.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Any other questions or any other, is there anybody else who would like to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public comment. Questions, discussions? I did have a follow-on for staff if I can. Mr. Lovehucker? Would it be possible, I mean, I know it's not your job to do the due diligence, but between you and Mr. Perkinson, could maybe get with the county attorney and let us get to some notion about what the engagement rules would be with the adjacent property and the hunting and the duck hunting piece? Would that be possible?
I believe so, yes, sir. And I don't know if Ms. Parman knows at all.
I'm not
but
asking
I'd
for
be,
an answer now.
I'd be more than happy to look into that for you.
I think that would be appreciative of that thing, of it. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have one comment, and I've made it before, but this is a terrific project. I couldn't be happier with it, but we need one of these in the southeastern part of the county. That's noted in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, I know, and I know you're aware of it, but we have the Chickahominy River Park, we have the marina, and now this, which is great, York County Park on the other side of the peninsula. But there's nothing like this east of Kingsmill, and no public access at all east of the marina. And I think it's time we get one. So there.
Comments, discussion, or a motion?
Mr. Chair, I recommend approval of rezoning 23-0006 and SUP 23-0025 for Brickyard Landing Park and the associated conditions with that application.
And we will need a second resolution for consistency for the comp plan. So the first motion on the
Okay,
board.
first would be the consistency with
Right,
the comp
please.
plan. Okay, that's my first motion, is consistency
Have a
with
motion on the floor?
Mr. Krupp,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor,
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman,
Aye.
Mr. Rose.
Aye.
Ms. Knoll,
Aye.
Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
Mr. Polster.
Aye. Mr. Crowley?
My second motion would be recommending approval of the rezoning and SUP along with the associated conditions for Brickyard Landing Park.
Motion on the floor.
Mr. Krupp,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor,
Aye.
Mr. Haldeman,
Aye.
Mr. Rose.
Aye.
Ms. Knoll,
Aye.
Mr. Rogers,
Aye.
Mr. Polster.
Aye.
Both motions carried.
Okay, thank you. So we are moving on our agenda for Planning Commission considerations. Hearing none, the Planning Director's report.
I don't have anything to add unless you have questions. I did, if you didn't get an opportunity to meet Amanda Frazier, our new Community Development Assistant, sitting right there. This is her first meeting. We're thrilled to have her here. Josh has been helping her out tonight. Thank you, Josh. So just wanted to introduce her to you.
And can I ask, before Mr. Wysong leaves, as he's on his way out, could you hold on just 1 minute for when we get to the next item?
Okay. I wanted to say, I don't know how Josh got Bravos off of the boss meeting this month. How did that happen?
Lucky.
Okay, anything else? So we're on to Planning Commission discussions and requests.
I have two items. One, and the reason I asked Mr. Wysong to stay, I noted on the staff report that his signature block is a little bit different in that he's a principal planner now. And so I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Wysong on a well-deserved promotion. And that's the only reason I asked you to stay.
Congratulations.
And my second administrative note is just, and for those of you who've seen my email, this is repetitive, but I just for the record wanted to say that I'll be leaving the Planning Commission after January 31st. And so there'll be more on that later on, but just wanted to add that to the record.
And as a side note to that, the Planning Commission will recognize Ms. Null, Dr. Rose, and Mr. Kraft at our January Planning Commission meeting. Any other items? I had one. that I wanted to bring up? Anything? The item that I wanted to bring up was one that I thought was a good idea, and I'm not so sure about the other one. But it's using the natural habitat information as part of the decision process in the staff report. And when it came to the AFD, I thought that was just spot on in terms of information and how that helps. And it actually shows an implementation of something that we put out of the comp plan for it. I still think that there's some issues over the prime agricultural soils. I'm not arguing with what the staff is using now, but as most of you may know, in December of next year, the DEQ will come up with a policy and a requirement that identifies what prime agricultural land actually consists of, but more importantly, could restrict the amount of acres that can be disturbed for that and for forests. And so, like most of the other things that we do here with new things like the Airbnb type things or the solar farm conditions and regulations, it's something that happens over time. So I was happy to see us use this information in a different way than a solar farm that may be a benefit. The but to this thing was the contractor facility of 4 acres, of which the majority of that land was on prime agricultural soils. And so I had to wonder and ask, what am I supposed to infer from that when I see that? Also considering that we've also built a home on that land already, even though the facility is offset for that. But once again, I think we're plowing new ground in terms of how we use this information. And in the one case, I absolutely applaud it. One other one, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure what that tells me. But I think it's a work in progress. How about that for it? And that's my last comment. Unless there's anything else, I'll take
Mr.
a
Chair,
motion.
if I may, just to kind of tack on to what you were just saying about the NACA implementation. Yes, as you say, it's a work in progress, and we've been trying to figure out when to apply it, when to include in staff reports. So I think we have kind of a base of when, for obviously like large undeveloped land, having that available as a resource and information. But we're still working out kinks of, like you said, the contractor jar, if that's, would be applicable using that or not. So, appreciate any feedback you have. So,
Well,
yeah.
and the staff is learning as well as we are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that for it. Any other comments from the staff on that, Mr. Sanders? No. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment to our meeting on the 1st of January. 6th of January.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.